What's up guys, TopTierYugioh here, and today we're going to have a Yu-Gi-Oh theory discussion on one of the resources within the game. And so we've already talked about the philosophy of fire, which is a resource that you start with and naturally lose, aka your life points. Well, today we're going to talk about a resource that you start with and naturally gain, aka your cards. And so today we're going to be talking about card advantage. We're going to go into what it is, how to use it, why it's important, and then ultimately why it's going to lead to you winning more games, which is what we all want, right? So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so as we all know, Yu-Gi-Oh is all about the exchange of resources, and so that generally means the loss of one thing that we're going to call X for the gain of another thing called Y. And so the philosophy of fire refers to when X or Y refer to either player's life points. Card advantage is when X and Y refer to either player's cards, and so generally is the ability to trade cards for more cards, either yours or your opponent's. Or another way you could describe it as being the number of cards that you have relative to yourself and to your opponent. And so the way that card advantage is usually measured is a difference in the number of cards that you have and the number of cards that your opponent has. And so if I have 2 cards and you have 1 card, then I'm +1. But if you have 2 cards and I have 1 card, then I'm -1. Or it can be the same when you're just talking about your own cards. So if I have 1 card, I activate it, and now I have 2 cards, I went +1 off of that 1 card. And generally you want a plus, like you want to gain more cards. And so I think one of the most basic examples of this would be Upstart Goblin, where you activate Upstart and then you draw a card. And so you're losing Upstart Goblin, but then you're gaining the card that you draw. And so you traded the Upstart Goblin for the card that you drew. However, you still only have 1 card, and so you broke even, or you went +0 as some people say, or you could just say there's no change in card advantage. But then if you look at Pot of Greed, where Pot of Greed can be your only card, you activate it, and then you draw 2 cards, and you lose that Pot of Greed. And so you started with 1 card, now you have 2 cards, so you went +1. So that's sort of an example of trading your card for more of your cards. But again, you can also trade your cards for your opponent's cards. And so if you look at something like Solemn Strike, you can trade that for your opponent's cards. And so if you have a Solemn Strike and your opponent has a monster and they activate the effect, then you chain your Solemn Strike and destroy their monster. So they lost that monster, you lost Solemn Strike. And so you traded your card, and 1500 life points, for your opponent's monster. So that's an example of trading a card for your opponent's cards. Or another example would be like a Kaiju, where your opponent has a monster you want to get rid of, obviously, and you have your Kaiju, and you both only have that 1 card. You tribute your opponent's monster to summon the Kaiju to their side of the field, and now they still have 1 monster, that Kaiju, but you don't have any cards left. And so you traded your 1 card to get rid of the monster that they had, but you went -1 in terms of card advantage. Another example would be like Raigeki, where you activate Raigeki, and you lose Raigeki, the card itself, and your opponent loses however many monsters they have. And so at worst it's going to be a 1-for-1, or you're just break even, because if they only have 1 monster, you're only losing the 1 Raigeki. But if they have 5 monsters, Raigeki can be a maximum +4, which is amazing. And so I think the most polarizing example of card advantage right now actually is Pot of Desires. And so let's say you only have Pot of Desires, it's the only card in your hand, and then you activate it, you banish the top 10 cards of your deck, and then you draw 2. Well, now you have 2 cards. So since you started with 1, you're +1 in terms of card advantage. So Pot of Desires is a +1, it's not a -9, because card advantage only refers to the number of cards on your field or in your hand. And so now let's talk about why card advantage is important. And so the general basic theory behind card advantage, and this goes way back to the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh, but the importance of card advantage is that if you don't have any cards, so if you're losing at card advantage in the worst way possible, you have 0 cards, you actually cannot win the game. You need a monster to attack your opponent. And so if you have 0 cards, you can't win. If you have 1 monster, 1 card, you can now attack your opponent. Therefore, you can get closer to winning, or you can even win the game with just 1 monster. If you have 2 monsters, now you can attack your opponent for more damage and possibly win faster. Same with 3 monsters, now you have even more. And the general trend goes that the more cards you have, the more chances you have to win a game, or the more monsters that you can have to attack your opponent with, or the more cards that you have to burn your opponent with if you're playing a burn deck. And so you generally need cards to win, and so card advantage is a measure of who's winning the game. If you have more cards, you're probably winning. If you have less, you're probably losing. But there are other ways to affect card advantage. And the easiest way goes back to the battle phase. And so if you attack over your opponent's monster, they lost a monster and you didn't. And so you're +1 in terms of card advantage after that happens. So if both players only have 1 monster and I attack theirs, now they have 0 monsters, I have 1, so again, +1. Other game mechanics that affect card advantage include pretty much all of the summoning methods. So if you look at a tribute summon, like you have 2 cards, and then you tribute 1 to summon the other. So you lost that 1 card that you tributed, therefore a tribute summon is a -1. Same with an Xyz or a Synchro summon. Except with those you can also lose more than 1, and you can also lose more than 1 if you're like tributing a level 7 or higher monster. But so with Xyz and Synchro monsters, again, you're losing 2 or more cards to gain 1 card. So those are all minuses in terms of card advantage. Same with fusion and ritual summons. And those can often be the worst because you're losing the monsters that you tribute, you're losing the spell like the fusion or ritual spell, And again, you're only summoning one monster. So the only summoning method that actually allows you to gain card advantage is pendulum summoning, because again, card advantage only refers to the number of cards on the field and in your hand, but pendulum summoning, you can special summon it from the extra deck without losing anything on your field or in your hand. And so once again, Yu-Gi-Oh is all about making all of these tiny micro exchanges that generally lead to you having more resources than your opponent, because like I said before, having more cards generally means you're winning the game, and then by extension, reducing your opponent's number of cards to 0 means that they're losing the game. So your goal a lot of the time is to manage all of these exchanges so that you end up with more cards than your opponent, regardless of how that be. And so like if you have a Solemn Warning and your opponent summons 2 monsters, and you know that they're going to go into an Xyz summon, they're the same level and they're playing an Xyz deck, should you use your warning on one of their monsters? The answer is no. Because if you Solemn one of their monsters, then you only went 1 for 1. They lost their 1 monster, you lost your 1 Solemn. However, if they go into an Xyz summon, and then you Solemn that monster, well now they've lost both of their monsters, and you lost your 1 Solemn, and so you went +1. And so it's a lot of these little things that make a big difference within the game. And so it's even bigger if they're about to pendulum summon. So now I just want to show you a quick example of again how important card advantage is. And so I'm going to be playing Zodiac Metal Foes against ABCs. And so just watch this turn. And so I normal summon my rat, go into a wild bow, and then use the rat effect to summon another rat. Then I go into Tigris to get back the rat, then rat to get another rat, then go into Bullhorn to search Viper, and then Emerald. Then I go into my Metal Foe plays. Then I activate the Yugioh Emerald to shuffle all the things back, and so through these small plays I do lose a little bit of advantage, but then through the pendulum summon I'm able to gain it all back. And so then after everything is said and done, by the end of this turn I have 8 cards to my opponent's 5, and they're gonna draw a 6. But still, I'm +2 in terms of card advantage. So who do you think is going to be winning this game? Let's take a look and find out. So they activate Union Hanger. I'm able to chain Dronsia to destroy Hanger. Then they set 1 monster, 1 back row. Activate Unicorn to return the monster to their hand. They activate Treacherous Trap Hole, targeting my Yugioh Emerald and my Mithrilium. Then I just chain my Full Metal Soul Fusion to summon to a second Mithrilium and to bring back Gold Driver. And so now I'm able to continue most of my Metal Foes plays. And then I can Pendulum Summon again to gain more advantage, and then just attack directly for game. So this is an example of why card advantage is so important, and why you generally want to build your deck to gain you the most card advantage as possible on your first turn. So a lot of why I won this game is also due to tempo, which is another resource within the game. And so if you want to see a video on tempo, please like this video, and when this video gets 50 likes, I'll upload another discussion video on tempo, and really what that means and how to use it to your advantage. So just to summarize everything one more time, Yu-Gi-Oh is all about exchanging your resources. So the philosophy of fire is the exchange between life points and cards, and then card advantage is the exchange between cards and more cards, whether it be yours or your opponent's. And ultimately, card advantage is a measure of who's more likely to win a game. So once again, if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down in the comment section below. I'll try to reply as soon as possible. But thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you guys later.
Remember that time, those cerulean tides, sapphire, a sapphire diamond.